My name is Klaus, and today I want to take you on a journey through what is, without question, my favorite game of all time, Mount and Blade. Europe 1200. This is not the story of a hero, at least not yet. This is the story of a fragile man, with nothing but ambition, who will slowly rise battle by battle until he becomes a warrior capable of shaping the fate of kingdoms. And every legend has a beginning. We start here with the creation of a character, no armor worth naming, no reputation, no army, just potential. Each choice we make now, every small decision, will echo throughout the campaign. The banner we choose will define our identity. Our name will define how the world remembers us. And today, I choose a name that carries weight, King Vlad of Wallachia. Inspired by one of my favorite medieval figures, Vlad the Impaler, a name feared by enemies and respected by allies. Even if this campaign is not set in his homeland, his spirit will ride with us. Our appearance is simple, nothing extravagant. A man shaped by hardship, not luxury. And with that, we step into Europe. This is the world as it stood around the year 1200, a continent divided by ambition, faith, and steel. And for this campaign, my eyes are fixed on one land above all others, Spain. Here, the echoes of the Reconquista still ring through the hills and cities. Christian kingdoms pressing south, Muslim realms holding their ground. This is where our story begins. We swear allegiance to Castile, a proud kingdom. Caught between rivals and opportunity, before we march into danger, we prepare. The marketplace offers modest tools of survival. A spear, simple but deadly with speed. A crossbow, slow but decisive. We sell what we do not need, buy what will keep us alive. And stock enough food to avoid starvation on the road. No luxuries, only necessities. The tavern is quiet today. No companions willing to join our cause yet, so for now, we ride alone before we move forward. It is worth understanding the scale of the world before us. The Iberian Peninsula lies fractured, Portugal to the west, León and Castile in the north, and powerful Muslim realms in the south. Beyond Spain, England watches from across the sea. France stands strong with Paris at its heart to the north. The kingdoms of Denmark, Sweden, and Norway endure harsh lands. At the center of Europe rises the giant, the Holy Roman Empire. Vast, wealthy, and dangerous, Italy remains divided. The Balkans restless. Eastern kingdoms stretch toward Kiev. It's beyond. This is not a small world, and we will not conquer it quickly. But every empire begins with a single fight as we ride south. But every empire begins with movement, so we ride. Not far from the road, we encounter our first opportunity, enemies, poorly equipped. Unimportant in the eyes of history, but necessary. This first battle will not be glorious. It will be awkward, slow, uncertain, and that is exactly how it should be. The fight begins. I line up the crossbow. But the timing is wrong. The bolt misses. Already. Mistakes. The enemy closes in. I switch to the spear. This weapon is not forgiving. It demands speed, distance, and control. Without momentum, it is almost useless. I circle. Too wide. Too slow. A blow glances off my shield. Another is blocked. My strikes miss their mark. This is not a hero. Yet this is a man learning. The enemy presses. Closer. Shields rise. Weapons clash. The sound of metal fills the air. I retreat not in fear, but in calculation to strike with a spear. You must move. I turn the horse. Build speed. The ground rushes. Beneath us now, mark one enemy falls. Confidence flickers. Not certainty, just belief. Another pass, another strike. The rhythm begins to form. I miss again and again, but each failure teaches timing, distance, angle. The enemy leader steps forward, more aggressive. More dangerous, his shield splinters under pressure. Sign, a small one, but important, experience. Accumulates quietly, a level gained. Strength grows, invisibly. This is how warriors are forged, not in triumph, but in repetition. I circle again. Faster now. True, another falls. Then another. The battlefield shifts. What? As chaos becomes control, the enemies hesitate. They are fewer now. Their confidence fades, mine grows. I push forward, a clean strike. Stumble, a fall, only a handful. Remain, the fight slows, becomes deliberate, careful. One, blocks my strike. Another tries to flank. I pull. Back, reposition. The horse breathes heavily. Beneath me, I commit. A full charge. The spear lands. Stubborn, defensive, dangerous. Still, we circle each other, neither. Rushing, a mistake here would cost everything. He blocks again, and again I pull away. Build. Speed one last time. The spear connects, and it is over. Silence returns to the field. Our first victory, not elegant, not heroic, but real. We collect what remains. Horses valuable. Armor better than what we wore before. Weapons, coin. If nothing else, every piece matters. With spoils in hand, we turn toward Granada, a city that stands as a symbol of what is to come. But the road does not allow rest. Another enemy appears. Ahead, another fight waiting to begin. And with it, another step on the long road to power. The road does not grow quieter. Victory never brings peace for long, only momentum. Ahead of us, another enemy waits. This time, I fight with intention. The spear remains my primary weapon, long reach. Devastating with speed, but now I add the sword. A weapon for close moments, for chaos. For when formations break and distance disappears, in the year 1200, this was how most men fought. Not as knights from stories, but as survivors. Weapons were chosen not for honor, but for what kept you alive. The battle begins quickly. No speeches, no warnings. Steel meets flesh. A charge, a clean strike. The impact is heavy. Now, sword. This is where fights become dangerous. Close, personal. In Europe around 1200, most men died not in heroic charges, but in moments like this, slipping on dirt, missing a step, or losing balance for a single second. The sword swings wide, blocked another, strike a hit. I retreat just enough to create space. The spear was the most common battlefield weapon of medieval. Europe for a reason, cheap to produce, easy to use, and deadly in trained hands. From peasant levies to professional soldiers, the spear ruled the battlefield. The enemy closes in, distance collapses. This rhythm, distance, speed, impact is how cavalry dominated. Medieval warfare, one enemy falls, then another. The fight ends quickly, efficient, controlled, and with that, the road to Granada opens again. Granada, a city heavy with meaning, in the early 1200s. It stood as one of the last great Muslim strongholds in Iberia, rich, defended, culturally vibrant. A symbol of resistance and of what the Christian kingdoms desired most. But the city does not welcome us. Yet two bandits block the road, desperate men, or foolish ones. Either way, they stand between us and shelter. The fight is brief, too brief to romanticize. One charge, one swing, both fall. This was the reality of medieval roads. Banditry was constant. Travelers disappeared often. Injustice rarely reached the countryside. At last, we enter Granada. The marketplace buzzes with life. Here, war turns into coin. We sell what we have taken. Weapons, armor, horses, everything becomes money. and money becomes survival. The tavern offers noise, but no opportunity, no companions tonight, no stories worth following, so we move on. Our next destination, Cordoba, another city with deep roots. Once the heart of Al-Andalus, a place of learning, culture, and power. But the road does not allow reflection ahead of us. 17 brigands. This is no small threat. These are not starving bandits. These are hardened men, veterans of violence in the medieval world. Groups like this were among the most dangerous forces outside formal armies. They had nothing to lose. I hesitate. My health is low. Barely above half. 51% now. 50-2 in Europe around 1200. This was often the moment where men turned back. Not out of cowardice, but out of wisdom. A single wound could mean infection, and infection often meant death. But opportunity rarely waits, so we fight. Slow to reload, but terrifying on medieval battlefields, were hated by the nobility. So effective, they were once condemned by the church. A weapon that could kill a knight. No matter his birth, the bolt flies. A hit. One falls before the fight even. Begins now the spear. I move, build, speed, strike the brigands. Charge, shouting, angry, fearless. This is chaos, not formation. Fighting, not disciplined. Warfare. This is the kind of violence that defined much of medieval Europe. Skirmishes, ambushes, roadside, bloodshed. I pull back another bolt. Another hit, the spear connects again. One by one. Their numbers shrink, but they press harder now. They surround. They block. They attack together. Close combat. This is where armor matters, where endurance matters, where mistakes are punished. Immediately a hit lands, pain. I retreat barely in the year 1200. Most soldiers feared wounds more than death, because death was quick. Wounds lingered. I create distance. The horse surges. Forward, the spear finds flesh again. Another brigand falls. Then, another. The tide turns slowly, painfully, at last. The survivors break. They fall. They scatter. They die. Silence. Against all odds, we stand, barely alive, but victorious. This fight changes. Something not just experience, not just loot, but confidence. We gather what remains, and once more, the road to Cordoba opens. The gates of Cordoba finally rise before us, a city that once stood at the heart of knowledge, faith, and power. In another age, this was one of the greatest cities in Europe. Now it is quieter, but still dangerous. We enter cautiously. Cities are not sanctuaries in this world. They are crossroads. Merchants, soldiers, spies, criminals. Everyone passes through. The marketplace draws us in first. Here, the chaos of the road becomes numbers, coin, weight, profit. We review what we've taken in battle. Weapons dented by use. Armor stained with blood. Horses always valuable. Everything has a price. And then we see it oil, cheap, too cheap to ignore, in medieval Europe. Trade mattered as much as war. Cities survived not by swords alone, but by supply routes, markets. And men willing to take risks? Oil was one of those. Goods heavy, valuable, always in demand. We buy all of it, every barrel, not for use, but for profit, because the goal now is clear. We need money, not for comfort, for armor. And after that, for men, an army does not rise from courage alone. It rises from coin. We stay in Cordoba longer than planned, watching, waiting. Eventually, the moment comes, the path opens, and we ride again. Our next destination. Seville, another great city, another center of trade. Seville welcomes us with noise. movement. The marketplace is alive. Merchants shouting prices. Animals being driven through narrow streets. Coins changing hands constantly. Once again, oil, and once again, at a price too good to ignore. We buy everything, risk stacking on risk, but this is how. Fortunes begin. We visit the tavern, not for drink, but for knowledge. Here, we meet a man of words, a poet in medieval Europe. Poetry was not entertainment, it was power. A well-spoken man could rise higher than a skilled warrior. Songs opened doors. Swords could not. We learn not for today, but for the future. Because if we ever wish to marry into nobility, words will matter. Titles alone are not enough. With knowledge gained, we turn back to the map. Our eyes move north, but the road is unforgiving. Ahead of us, 17 marauders, mounted, fast, dangerous. This is the worst kind of enemy. In Europe, around 1200, cavalry decided battles. Speed, momentum, fear and ant. Unprepared man stood no chance. They circled testing, waiting. For weakness, this is not a battle of strength, it is a battle of positioning. The crossbow comes. First, slow, heavy, one shot. A hit. A rider falls. The horse screams and collapses. The rest charge. I move immediately. The spear demands speed. I cannot let them surround me. This is chaos. Horses crashing past each other. Shields raised. Weapons swinging wildly. This is how medieval skirmishes truly looked: confused, violent. Fast, I build speed. Strike, one goes down. They regroup. They chase. They try to overwhelm. I pull away another bolt. Another hit in the medieval world. Mounted bandits like these were nightmares. They could raid villages, disappear into forests, and strike again days later. No banners, no. Mercy, the spear finds another target. A clean charge. Impact. Now, they hesitate. Numbers thinning. Confidence. Breaking, but they are still mounted. Still fast. Still. Deadly. I switch weapons. Sword. Out close combat. This is the most dangerous. Moment. A hit lands. Pain surges. I retreat. Again. Barely then space. .1. Final charge. The spear strikes true. One by one. They fall. Horses scatter. Men collapse. And finally, silence. We stand alone on the road. Alive again. This victory. It's different. It proves something. Not just that we can survive, but that we are becoming dangerous. Ahead lies Badajoz. And beyond that, ambition. The roads outside are dangerous. Bandits move in groups. Too many to face right now, so we wait. Patience is a weapon too. The road carries us north once more, leaving the dust and danger behind. We move toward another great city of Al-Andalus, a place shaped by trade, faith, and centuries of conflict. The walls rise slowly in the distance, strong, old, patient. We enter the city cautiously. Cities like this were more than settlements in medieval Iberia. They were prizes. Each one fed armies, financed wars, and decided the balance of power between kingdoms. The marketplace is busy. Merchants from distant lands call out prices. Spices, metal, textiles here. War turns into wealth. We unload our goods. Oil barrels traded for silver. Weapons sold by weight. Armor evaluated with a careful eye. The coin grows heavier in our purse, slowly but surely, in medieval Europe. This is how power truly grew, not in single heroic battles, but through repetition. Fight, sell, reinvest, again and again, as we leave the city gates. Danger finds us immediately. 12 bandits wait outside, not hiding, not fleeing, waiting. These men are strong axe experienced, they stand their ground. This was common in the year 1200. Many battles were not grand clashes between armies, but sudden, violent encounters just beyond city walls. Ambushes, roadside slaughter, short, brutal engagements where skill mattered more than numbers. The battle begins without warning. Steel flashes shields. Rise, I open with speed. The spear lowers. The horse surges. Forward, impact one falls. They respond. Aggressively, no hesitation. These are not desperate men. These are killers. I pull away. Turn. Sharply, the spear demands control too slow, and you die. Another charge, another strike. They surround, trying to box me in. This was the deadliest moment in medieval fighting when space disappears. I switch to the sword get close combat. Breath against breath, metal scraping metal, in the chaos of medieval battle. Most men did not die from perfect strikes. They died from exhaustion, from panic, from losing footing. A blow lands, pain flares. But we hold, I break free. Build speed again. The bandits falter. Their formation collapses. Confidence fades. One by one. They fall, and then silence. We return to the city, bloodied, victorious, once more. The marketplace receives us, weapons stripped from fallen hands, armor traded without sentiment. The cycle continues, and the purse grows heavier, with nothing left to gain here. We turn west, toward a different kingdom. The road to Kingdom of Portugal is long, quiet almost. Suspiciously so, no ambushes, no battles, just miles of open land. And then at last, Lisbon feels different. A city shaped by the sea, salt in the air, ships in the harbor, merchants speaking languages from far beyond Iberia. Portugal in the early 1200s was rising, smaller than its neighbors, but ambitious, focused on trade, exploration, and control of the coast. Lisbon was its heart. We visit this marketplace. Goods flow endlessly here. Everything moves, everything has value, but the most important moment waits elsewhere. The tavern, inside. The noise fades into conversation, and there among travelers and soldiers, we find him, William Our, first recruit. Every leader remembers this moment. The first man who chooses to follow, not because of titles, not because of banners, but because he believes. William is not a knight, not yet, but he has experience. He understands battle, and more importantly, he will not fight alone from this moment on. We are no longer just a warrior. We are becoming a commander. William will help us survive fights we could not win alone. He will draw enemy attention, hold lines, strike where needed, and later, he will help lead others. This is the true beginning, not of conquest, but of leadership. Together, we leave Lisbon. Two men now, walking towards something larger. For the first time on this journey, we are not alone. William rides beside me now, not a servant, not a subject, a companion. Ahead of us, 6 looters appear on the road, poorly armed. Poorly organized, this should not be difficult. But every first battle matters, not because of danger, but because of trust. I watch William as we approach, how he moves, how he positions himself in medieval warfare. The difference between victory and disaster was often coordination. 2 men acting. Together we're stronger than 10 acting alone. Battle begins. I charge first. A clean strike. 1 looter falls. Instantly, William does not hesitate. He engages another sword. Raised, confident, controlled. The looters scatter. This is not a fight. It is a collapse. 1 tries to flee. Down. Another blocks too slow. Moments later, it is over. 6 bodies on the road. No losses, no wounds. This is the value of companionship, not glory, reliability. We continue north. Deeper into the kingdom of Portugal, the road stretches. It's quietly ahead. No battles, no interruptions. Just time to think. And as we travel, it is worth remembering what this world truly looked like around the year 1200. In this age, Europe was not ruled by kings alone. It was ruled by relationships. Consider the life of a miner. Noble, not a king, not a great lord, just a man holding land in the name of another. He wakes before sunrise. His castle is small, more stone-housed than fortress. His power comes not from armies, but from obligation. He owes loyalty to his lord, military service when called, taxes when demanded, and in return, protection, at least in theory. His days are spent settling disputes between peasants, collecting rents, ensuring crops are planted on time. War, when it comes, is sudden and devastating. When his lord calls, he must answer, bringing whatever men he can gather, often farmers, often untrained. This was feudal Europe, a web of promises, some honored. Many broken marriage mattered more than love. A well-chosen wife could raise a family status for generations. A poor match could destroy. That is why poetry mattered. Words opened doors where swords could not, and every noble lived with the same fear that a stronger neighbor or an ambitious king would one day decide his land was worth taking. This was often the moment where men turned back, not out of cowardice, but out of wisdom. A single wound could mean infection, and infection often meant death, but opportunity rarely waits, so we fight. Slow to reload, but terrifying on medieval battlefields, were hated by the nobility. So effective, they were once condemned by the church. A weapon that could kill a knight. No matter his birth, the bolt flies, a hit. One falls before the fight even. Begins now the spear. I move, build, speed, strike the brigands. Charge, shouting, angry, fearless. This is chaos, not formation. Fighting, not disciplined. Warfare. This is the kind of violence that defined much of medieval Europe. Skirmishes, ambushes, roadside, bloodshed. I pull back another bolt. Another hit that connects again. One by one. Their numbers shrink, but they press harder now. They surround. They block. They attack together. Poorly organized, this should not be difficult. But every first battle matters, not because of danger, but because of trust. This is the worst kind of enemy. In Europe around 1200, cavalry decided battles. Speed, momentum, fear and an. Unprepared man stood no chance. They circled testing, waiting. For weakness, this is not a battle of strength, it is a battle of positioning. First, slow, heavy, one shot. A hit, a rider falls. The horse screams and collapses. The rest charge. I move immediately. The spear demands speed. I cannot let them surround me. This is chaos. This is the world we are moving through. A world where power is fragile and ambition is dangerous. As the road bends south again, our thoughts turn homeward, toward Kingdom of Castile, toward Toledo. Toledo is more than a city. It is a crossroads of cultures, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, all leaving their mark. A place where power changes hands. Slowly, we are not ready to conquer yet, but we are no longer wandering. We have a companion. We have experience. We have purpose. The road ahead is long, but for the first time, it feels possible. At last we cross the border. The land changes subtly, the rhythm of villages, the shape of fortifications, the way roads bend toward old strongholds. We have entered the kingdom of Castile. Castile was not born as a kingdom of luxury. It was born as a frontier. Its name comes from castles. Castillo's stone fortresses scattered across harsh land, built not for comfort, but for survival in the early Middle Ages. This was dangerous ground. To the south lay powerful Muslim states. To the north, rival Christian kingdoms. And between them, uncertainty. Castile learned early that walls mattered more than beauty, and loyalty mattered more than blood. By the year 1200, Castile had become something formidable. Not the richest kingdom in Iberia. Not the most cultured, but perhaps the most relentless. Its kings were shaped by war. Its nobles were raised on campaigns. Its people lived with the understanding that peace was temporary. One of the most defining figures of this age was Alfonso VIII of Castile, crowned as a child. He grew up surrounded by enemies, both external and internal. As a boy, Alfonso was nearly overthrown. Powerful noble families fought over control of the throne, using the king as a symbol rather than a ruler. Civil war threatened to tear Castile apart before it could mature. But Alfonso survived, and when he finally took control of his kingdom, he ruled with a singular focus: expansion under his reign. Castile became the driving force of the Reconquista. But this was not a simple religious war. It was political, economic, personal. Cities were not conquered for faith alone, they were conquered for land. Taxes, manpower, and prestige. Every captured city meant new farmland, new trade routes, new soldiers. Castilian warfare was brutal and direct. While other kingdoms hesitated, Castile advanced. Its armies were not always the most disciplined, but they were persistent. Castilian knights favored heavy cavalry charges, supported by militias drawn from towns and frontier settlements. These were not polished court warriors. They were men hardened by constant conflict. Yet, Castile was not only a land of swords, it was also a kingdom of law. During this period, Castile began developing legal traditions that would influence Spain for centuries. Local charters, fueros, were granted to towns. These documents defined rights, obligations, and privileges in exchange for loyalty and military service. Settlers gained freedoms unknown in many parts of Europe. This was how Castile populated newly conquered lands. Freedom was the reward for risk. Castilian towns became fiercely independent. Their militias defended walls. Their councils managed daily life. The king needed them, and they knew it. This balance between crown, nobility, and towns created tension, but also strength. Religion, too, played a complex role. Castile was deeply Christian, yet its cities were multicultural. Muslims and Jews lived within Castilian borders, often protected by royal authority, not out of tolerance but practicality. They paid taxes. They had skills, and Castile needed both. The spiritual heart of Castile embodied this complexity. A city where languages mixed, where scholars translated ancient texts, where cultures collided quietly behind thick walls. Castilian kings understood something crucial. Conquered land that collapses is useless. A land that works is powerful. But this fragile balance was always at risk. Nobles constantly tested. Royal authority, a powerful lord, could field his own army, build his own castles, challenge the crown openly. Kings ruled only as long as they could enforce obedience. Marriage was one of the strongest. Weapons in Castile, dynastic unions tied kingdoms together, ended wars, or started new ones. A poorly chosen marriage could bring generations of conflict, and every noble household lived with anxiety. Borders shifted. Alliances changed. A loyal vassal today could be a rebel tomorrow. This was life in Castile around 1200. not glorious, not stable, but alive. The people of Castile believed deeply in destiny, not fate, but effort. A man could rise, a family could fall, nothing was. Guaranteed. That belief shaped everything. From the way children were raised, to the way men fought, to the way kings ruled. Castile was not elegant like France, not ancient like Rome, not wealthy like Venice. It was something else. A kingdom that pushed forward, even when the cost was high. And this spirit would eventually shape all of Spain as we move through its lands now. We are walking through a kingdom still becoming itself, still unfinished, still hungry. But Castile does not stand alone. To the west lies another realm, older, quieter, but no less important. The kingdom of León, once the dominant Christian power in Iberia. Once the heart of resistance against Muslim rule, its history is intertwined with Castile, sometimes united, sometimes bitter rivals. And that is where our road now leads. Toward León, toward another chapter of this divided peninsula, toward the next turning point in our story. We ride now into the lands of the Kingdom of León. If Castile was born as a frontier, León was born as a legacy. Long before Castile rose to prominence, León stood as the principal Christian power of Iberia. Its roots reached back to the ancient kingdom of Asturias, the first Christian realm to survive the Muslim conquest of the peninsula. From mountain strongholds and narrow valleys, León inherited something rare: continuity. By the year 1200, León was no longer the dominant force it once was, but its influence remained deep. Its kings ruled not just land, but tradition. León was a kingdom of laws and councils, in fact. One of its greatest contributions to European history was not a battle, but a meeting. In 1188, the Cortes of León were convened, bringing together nobles, clergy, and representatives of towns. Many historians consider this the earliest form of a parliamentary assembly in Europe. Here, kings did not rule entirely alone. They negotiated, they listened, they bargained. This made León different, more cautious than Castile, more conservative in warfare, but also more stable. León's kings relied heavily on alliances. Marriage, diplomacy, and inheritance mattered as much as swords. The kingdom had been united with Castile before and would be again. But the relationship was always uneasy. León feared being absorbed. Castile feared being restrained. The nobility of León was old, older than Castile's frontier lords. They traced their bloodlines back generations, and they guarded their privileges fiercely. Unlike Castile, León did not rush south recklessly. Its wars were measured, its ambitions restrained by memory. León had risen once and fallen from dominance. It knew the cost of overreach. The people of León lived close to the land. Agriculture defined daily life. Monasteries dotted the countryside, acting as centers of learning, administration, and refuge. Faith here was quieter, less militant, more ritual than conquest. By 1200, León stood at a crossroads, caught between past glory and an uncertain future. Its fate would eventually intertwine with Castile permanently, but at this moment in time, it remained its own kingdom, proud, ancient, and watchful. And after passing through León's lands, we turn once more east, back into Castile. From Castile, our road bends toward a smaller realm, a kingdom often overlooked, yet fiercely independent, the kingdom of Navarre. Navarre lived between powers, France to the north, Castile and Aragon to the south. This made it cautious and dangerous. Navarre survived not through strength of arms, but through diplomacy, marriages, and strategic positioning. Its kings played larger neighbors against one another, buying time and autonomy. Mountainous terrain protected its heartland. Passes were narrow. Armies moved slowly here. Navarre chose survival over glory. We do not linger, because beyond Navarre lies a kingdom whose Ambitions stretched far beyond Iberia. We enter the lands of the Kingdom of Aragon, and immediately, everything feels different. Aragon was not just a kingdom, it was becoming an empire, unlike Castile and León, whose ambitions pointed south into Iberia. Aragon looked east, toward the Mediterranean, toward trade, fleets. In distant shores, Aragon began as a small perennial realm. Harsh and isolated, but through careful marriages and calculated expansion, it transformed itself. The turning point came with union. Aragon joined with Catalonia, bringing ports, merchants, and ships. This changed everything. By 1200, Aragon was no longer land-locked. It was maritime Barcelona. It emerged as one of the most important cities of the Western Mediterranean. Trade flowed in from Italy, North Africa, and the Levant, silver, textiles, spices. Aragonese kings understood. It's commerce. They protected merchants. They enforced contracts. They encouraged expansion. Overseas, where Castile built castles, Aragon built fleets. The nobility of Aragon differed from Castile's, more legalistic, more urban. Power was balanced between the crown, the nobility, the cities, the cortes of Aragon, where strong kings could not rule absolutely. They negotiated. They compromised. They ruled by consensus. This made Aragon resilient, internal. Revolts were rare. Rebellions were negotiated, not crushed. Aragonese warfare reflected this structure. Armies were smaller, but more disciplined naval power complemented land. Campaigns by the late 12th and early 13th centuries, Aragon expanded aggressively. Not only within Iberia, but outward, its future lay in Valencia, the Balearic Islands, Sicily. Sardinia, this was not conquest for faith alone. It was conquest for trade. For ports, for influence. Aragonese kings thought in generations. They planned marriages. To secure claims, they invested in law to stabilize rule. They cultivated loyalty through rights, not fear, culturally. Aragon was diverse. Latin, Castile and Occitan, influences mixed. Languages shifted from valley to valley. Identity here was layered. Religion mattered, but pragmatism mattered more. Muslims and Jews played vital roles in administration and finance. Expulsion was rare. Utility was valued. Aragon did not seek to dominate Iberia completely. It sought balance and advantage. This made it one of the most sophisticated political entities of medieval Europe, not the largest, not the strongest, but one of the smartest. As we pass through Aragonese lands now, we are witnessing a kingdom on the rise, one whose future will stretch far beyond these mountains, across seas, across cultures, across centuries. And while Castile would one day unify Spain by force, Aragon would shape it through connection. Two visions, two paths, one destiny, and our journey continues through them all. The road now carries us far from Iberia, across rivers, valleys, and old Roman roads. We reach one of the most dangerous places in medieval Europe. Here, the influence of the Holy Roman Empire presses against the lands of southern France. This is not a single frontier. It is a scar in the year 1200. Europe was not defined by clean borders. It was defined by zones of tension, regions where loyalties overlapped, where authority was unclear, where violence was constant, borderlands, where wars truly lived. Not in great capitals, but here, where knights tested each other, where mercenaries gathered, where ambition met opportunity. Battles in this age rarely resembled the grand clashes of legend. Most fighting was small, scale, frequent, relentless, raids, skirmishes, ambushes. An army did not need to conquer a city to win. It only needed to burn fields, steal livestock, capture prisoners for ransom. War was economic. Starvation was a weapon. on the borders of the Holy Roman Empire, this style of warfare was perfected. The empire itself was vast, too vast. Its emperor ruled in theory over hundreds of lords, bishops, and cities. In practice, power was fragmented. Each noble defended his own lands. Each bishop raised his own troops. Each city protected its walls fiercely. This meant that border warfare was often private warfare, not declared by emperors or kings, but by counts, dukes, and ambitious knights. Tactics reflected this reality. Armies were small. Speed mattered more than numbers heavy. Cavalry still dominated open ground. A knight in full armor, charging at speed, was terrifying. But cavalry alone could not hold land. Infantry mattered spree. See RMEN. By 1200, the crossbow had transformed warfare. It required less training than the longbow. It could penetrate armor. It terrified the nobility. Crossbowmen were often hired. Mercenaries, professional killers, they stood behind shields, reloaded calmly, and changed the course of battles. Silently, infantry formations grew tighter. Men learned to fight shoulder to shoulder. Discipline mattered. Battles were chaotic, noisy, confusing, dust in the air, shouting, metal striking metal. Most men did not die instantly. They fell. They bled. They suffocated under weight. Fear was constant, and morale decided everything. Force that broke formation was slaughtered. A force that held could survive. Against superior numbers, this is why commanders mattered, not for heroics, but for control. Border battles often ended. Without a clear winner, both sides disengaged. Both claimed victory, and the war continued. Captured knights were ransomed. Captured peasants were not. In the year 1200, war was business. A knight captured alive was worth a fortune. A dead knight was a waste. This created strange rules. Nobles fought each other with restraint. Peasants suffered brutally. Church tried to limit this violence. TRUCES of God. Peace. Movements, they failed, because war was woven into society. On these borders, men learned early, you fight when opportunity comes. You retreat when survival demands it. Honor mattered, but survival mattered more. And so battle followed. Battle. Day after day. Season after season. No grand conclusion, only endurance. This is the world we move through now. A land where violence is expected, where steel speaks louder than law, and beyond this scarred frontier lies a realm shaped by culture, as much as conflict. We entered the lands of the Kingdom of Toulouse, and immediately, the tone shifts. Toulouse was not like the northern kingdoms. It was warmer, richer in language, more refined. This was Occitania, a land of poetry, music, and learning. Its nobles spoke a different tongue. Their courts valued troubadours as much as warriors. Songs mattered. Here, reputation mattered. Yet, beneath this elegance lay tension. The counts of Toulouse ruled powerful lands, but their authority was fragile. They stood between the French crown to the north, the Holy Roman Empire to the east, the church. Watching closely, Toulouse was wealthy. Trade flowed through its cities. Rivers connected it to the Mediterranean. The road bends north, far north, leaving behind the sun-dried lands of Iberia, the poetry of Occitania, and the scarred borderlands of empire. Ahead lies a different kind of tension, not born of religion, but of rivalry. We are traveling now between two powers that would shape medieval Europe for centuries, the Kingdom of England and the Kingdom of France. This is not a peaceful border. It is a wound that never fully healed. By the year 1200, England and France were bound together by blood, land, and resentment. Kings ruled on both sides of the Channel, yet neither truly accepted the others. Authority, English kings held vast territories, and France, Twinch kings claimed sovereignty over them. Both were right, both were wrong, and neither would yield this. Tension shaped everything. Wars were not constant, but inevitable. As we travel through these lands, the countryside tells the story. Castles stand closer together. Here, roads are guarded. Villages are cautious. People live knowing that armies could appear with little warning, that loyalties might change overnight, that banners might shift without mercy. This is where medieval politics reached its sharpest edge. The English crown, still shaped by the legacy of the Norman conquest, saw France not as a foreign land but as inheritance, ancestral right. The French crown saw England not as a rival kingdom, but as a rebellious vassal, a lord who had forgotten his place. This contradiction could never be resolved peacefully. And so, Europe waited knights trained, treasuries filled and emptied. In the next chapter of our journey, we will enter both. We will see how power looks when it is established, when it is unquestioned, when it commands loyalty by tradition alone. And there, something changes, because wandering ends and preparation begins. In London and Paris, we will no longer move as a lone warrior and his companion. We will begin to build an army, not mercenaries, not desperate men, but soldiers with purpose. Men who fight not just for coin, but for direction. And once the foundations are laid, once strength is gathered, we will turn south again, back to Iberia, back to the land where this journey began. But we will not return as we left. We will return with banners, with steel, with intent. The Reconquista will no longer be distant idea, it will become action.